The Leftovers is over, and I'm depressed. I'm depressed. I'm very, very depressed. And we are live here being depressed on The Leftovers Live, here on Post Show Recaps, where we are talking about, pretty easily the most depressing show on television. That's scripted anyway. There's plenty of reality shows that are really depressing, but as far as scripted dramas go, this is so bleak. So bleak. And The Leftovers, this new show that has depressed us all season long, has finally come to an end. Antonio Mazzaro and I, we have stuck with it all the way through. Here we are at the end of episode 10. I am here with Antonio. Antonio, are you as depressed as I am?
Yeah, that was the most depressing leftover since Black Friday at the homeless shelter.
Oh, God, that was really depressing.
Yeah, that was pretty brutal, man. I wanted to think it was an emotional roller coaster, but it was just that bottom part of the roller coaster. Whew, not so great. But they at what they do, they're fantastic at it. Am I right?
Yeah, listen, if you're looking to feel better about yourself, I think tune into The Leftovers and it'll get the job done.
Yeah, I've no doubt about it. This is sort of like a punching bag for all of our emotions, for all of our feels. It's a feels punching bag.
It is a feels punching bag, and we hit it for the final time probably for a good long while. The Leftovers has been renewed for a second season. No word on when it's going to be coming back. My guess would be around the same time as it did this year, so probably we're talking June 2015 until we return to Mapleton.
Yeah, which is interesting. I don't know what Mapleton's going to look like when we get there, and I'm not sure they know, and I'm okay with that. But I don't envy their task of having to follow that up.
Yeah, they definitely have a lot going on the show right now, and it was a very explosive finale, quite literally. So we've got a lot to dig into. Let's just get right into it. Normally on Sunday nights here on Post Show Recaps, Antonio Mazzaro and I are talking about The Strain. Tonight we really wanted to give The Leftovers its proper due with the season finale. This has been a show that we have had. It's been a roller coaster for us as well, Antonio, in terms of our enjoyment of the show. But I think for the past several weeks we've been pretty high on this. I'm still processing my feelings about the finale. There was a lot that I liked and maybe some stuff I didn't like so much. But overall, I'm pretty ready to give the thumbs up to The Leftovers Season 1.
Yeah, I would definitely give the entire season a thumbs up. I'm not sure if the leftovers needed to figure out what kind of show it was, or if I just needed to accept it for the kind of show it was. And I still don't know what the case is there. And I don't know that I need to know. I just know that whatever the show ultimately ended up being to me was something pretty special and significant in terms of television shows that have been released in recent memory. It wasn't one of the best. It wasn't one of the best made. There were some great moments of acting. The story itself could be rather frustrating at times. But this show pushes some buttons like no other. And they're buttons I don't necessarily want to have pushed always.
Do
They're
they
buttons
push
I'm not.
these buttons every 108 minutes?
They,
Sorry, we're not
they,
going
they
to get any other opportunities to make
they,
lost references, so...
we might. You never know. Just you say we won't, and then we'll find two or three before we even know it. But they're buttons that need to be pushed, I think. I think that they're not those buttons that you could or could not push and see what happens. I think we need to push these buttons. I think like the guilty remnant is trying to make the people in Mapleton remember. I think we need to think about these sorts of things, and I think we need to feel these feels. And I don't know that there's a show on TV that delivers them the way The Leftovers does. So overall, like you, I'm ready to give this season a thumbs up.
So we're going to get into, the nitty-gritty of this episode. I think we'll talk about the season overall as well. Maybe some of the things we wanted to see that we didn't end up seeing. Some of the things that we saw we didn't think we would see. Certainly we'll talk about something that we called a couple of weeks ago that once we called it, there was no other way that it was going to go, and of course it did go in that direction. So we're going to be talking about this for the next little while. If you are watching us live, that's awesome. You can tweet at Antonio and I using the hashtag PSRecaps. Antonio is at AC Mazzaro. That's two Z's and one R. I'm at Round Howard, like Ron Howard, but rounder. We would love to hear from you guys. Seems like we've got a healthy amount of people watching us live right now, so if you've got questions, we probably don't have answers, but we can try. We can do our best to pretend we have answers. But let's talk about this episode, Antonio. So overall, we said thumbs up to the season. Would you give a thumbs up to the episode? Would you give a thumbs up to the season finale?
I would, although I would say it was not entirely, and we can really dig into this, it was not entirely pleasing in terms of delivering on what we may have seen for the 3 or 4 episodes prior to that in every aspect. I still have no effing clue what Patty's plan was and why they were pushing Kevin the way they pushed him. Because the end,
Her plan was to become a ghost
and
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 haunt Kevin's dreams and make flowers with him,
and
and
make flowers. There were flowers being made.
so many flowers.
No, so many flowers. That there's no turning around. You should not have turned around. So I was let down for some of those things, but it's hard to be let down in the midst of all the things that the episode was doing, from both a mind F standpoint and from just a pure emotional F standpoint. I think that the show was really delivering. The finale itself was delivering on those levels, and so if it didn't answer the questions that I expected it to answer, or didn't tie together some of the things I think the season from a narrative standpoint seemed to be about, I'm not so disappointed, because the things that it did really well. And we've got a season 2, so hopefully we picked up where we left off in terms of those things.
This, for me, was the best episode of the season for one reason.
Tell me.
Holy Wayne died.
Holy Wayne died. Ah, yes, he died. That was so perfect. His death. Oh, granted. Was that your one wish, that Holy Wayne die? And he just thought
granted
about
my
it?
wish. He
And
died.
he said, "Oh, granted," and then he died. It's perfect. It worked out perfectly.
It was really good. Okay, so it wasn't my favorite episode of the season, but I really enjoyed that. Obviously, that made me very happy. I was hooting and hollering when I saw dying Holy Wayne. What was he doing so close to Mapleton?
Who knows? He may have been trying to get to Russia, apparently. Maybe you can see Russia from Mapleton? I don't know exactly.
From Kevin Garvey's house?
I don't know exactly what was going on there. He clearly had been on the other side of the country and had fled eastward for some reason. But why he ended up in a bathroom diner, shot in the stomach in Mapleton, and how, and all of that, I really cannot say. And look, candidly, I don't care.
Yeah, sure, me neither. I
really
don't care
don't.
at all.
I really hope we don't find out, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm good. All right, so let's talk turkey here. This is the thing I want to dive into first. We'll get into the nitty-gritty of the episode, but I do want to talk about the Holy Wayne of it all really quickly. Do you think that this is the Lindelof and the writers kind of throwing their hands up and saying, yeah, maybe this one didn't work so well, we're just going to put it away. We're done with Holy Wayne. It's over.
I don't know about
or do you think that they've got plans for that storyline moving forward?
I don't think they have any plans for that storyline moving forward. I feel pretty comfortable saying that. I don't know about them saying this didn't work so well, though. I think that the whole point of the Holy Wayne storyline was sort of somewhere between what the AFTech agent said, which is, just some wacko who thinks he's God, and the idea that after the departure happened, people were looking for an answer and looking for things, and things like this sprung up. And the people that you would dismiss as nut jobs and that you would throw in the booby hatch before were people that you started looking to for answers, because maybe they're in their spouting ramblings, they actually did know something. And Wayne's self-doubt is the sort of self-doubt that religious figures throughout history have experienced. So it isn't surprising that there's a very fine line between somebody who would be revered in future years to come and somebody who would be killed as a wacko. So I don't think that the storyline fails in that respect. I don't think we need to know if he really was sacred or not to know that he's a guy who could have happened at that time when this crazy event happened. And so it took up way too much time on our screen. It didn't matter to the context of the story. The character's gone. I'm happy about it.
I'm happy about it too. All right, so let's get into the episode. You ready?
I'm ready.
Let's go to the top. So we start where we left off not 2 weeks ago, I guess 3 weeks ago now, because we had a little bit of a break.
Yep, 3 weeks. There was a holiday, Labor Day.
We're back at the end of Cairo. We are back inside the cabin. Kevin is just sitting there, chain smoking. He is staring at the dead, bloody body of Patty. Meanwhile, at the guilty remnant, Jill Garvey, she's smoking cigarettes. She's sitting across from Lori, and I have it in my notes that Lori, when she takes the cigarette and smokes it and stares back at Jill, I wrote, Lori looks like a mob boss. She looks like she's like really just like the kingpin at this point.
Yeah, she's the godmother.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
She's the den mother and the godmother.
It's pretty badass. Lori is seeming pretty badass. But things will change throughout the episode, but right in that moment she's just kind of looking like, I'm ready to make some moves here.
Well, and it was interesting because, as you pointed out several episodes ago, or 2 episodes ago, several weeks ago, when Jill shows up at the Guilty Remnant, there was this great mix on Amy Brenneman's face of, oh man, I really don't want you to be here because I know what's about to happen. And sort of, I want to take care of my daughter, so if she wants to be here, she should be here, just like I could be here. And in that moment, though, she had gone basically full on, I'm ready to do business here. If you're not going to leave, this is what we're going to deal with. So she's ready to try to assert her will and dominance over her daughter in that moment, and the mob boss cigarette is part of that.
So we move away from Mapleton. We get back on the road with Tommy Garvey. He's with Christine. Christine is obviously very upset. They've got the baby in the back. The baby's hungry. She wants her bottle. Christine very clearly does not seem ready to be a mom. She's feeling very jilted by everything that happened with Holy Wayne. And she's, complaining, he's never going to come for us, is he? And Tommy says, I don't know, but I can take care of us. I can take care of everybody. We don't need Wayne. And Christine, she pretends like she's on board with this.
Yeah, but she's listening to Nina Simone on her iPod, right? So she's definitely feeling some feels and feeling a little bit. I mean, Nina Simone has a voice like a bleeding lamb. Like it's not something that makes you feel completely okay every time you put Nina Simone on. Sometimes it makes you feel great. Sometimes it makes you feel pretty down in the dumps. So Christine is experiencing some sadness here and some doubt. And who shows up? Who's in the Grace Church bus?
Oh my God! So I'm not the world's biggest Cosby Show fan,
but you're one of them.
but I have seen the Cosby Show, and I was watching this with my wife, and my wife might be the biggest Cosby Show fan on the planet. I guess this is Elvin from the Cosby Show shows up.
It's Elvin from the Cosby Show, and that guy, I love the guy. He is making a career off of being Elvin from the Cosby Show, I think, because he's shown up on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia as Donovan McNabb. He later passed himself off on It's Always Sunny as Tiger Woods. He passed himself off as Don Cheadle, I think. So,
that's right. Oh, man.
And on It's Always Sunny, they said, no, it's that guy from the Cosby Show, Alvin, whatever your name is.
That's great. So here he is again.
What's he doing here? This is a face. This guy. Are we going to see this guy again?
I don't know. I wonder if he was kind of just like, hey, David Lindelof, I'm a big Lost fan. I'd just like to be on whatever show you're working on right now, even if it's just a cameo.
I don't know. I feel like that's where Christine went, right?
Do you think that she went with him?
It seems rather convenient. That was the place and time where he probably asked her, do you need help? And she said, yeah, I'll get on your bus. And then she was gone. So I got a little feeling that we're going to see this guy again.
So do you think that sometimes shows do this? In fact, shows do this a lot, where they'll have their final episode of a season introduce a character, kind of offhandedly, and then that character will become a major presence in the season that follows. Do you think that might be something that we're seeing with Mr. Cosby Show?
I think it's a possibility. I don't know why else you put a very recognizable face, somebody that immediately hits home to people that are watching, in just a completely bit role like that. You might be right. He might have just said, hey, love your work, would love to pop in on your show for a 3-line bit, and that was it. That may have been it. I have no idea. But I tend to believe that, when they were writing, and we can get into this, when they were writing this episode, they didn't know if they were renewed for season 2 or not.
Yeah, I don't think so. No way.
Yeah, so they could have been leaving themselves some outs for season 2, and this could be one of them, but I certainly don't think that this was their plan. They don't have a multi-year deal like a Game of Thrones or maybe some other showrunners might have where they're inked, or they might have some options, but I don't think they knew that they were going to make season 2 when they were writing this. So I suspect they might have just been leaving themselves an out here by putting a recognizable person in that role.
So he asks Tommy if he needs any help. Tommy says, do you just go around asking people for help? And he says, yeah. And Tommy says, do people say yes? And the guy says, all the time. So you think that Christine has said yes to this man?
I think that's a really good possibility. And if Christine hasn't, I think this is somebody that could just come to play in our story in other ways. I mean, I think this interaction might stick with Tommy. I think Tommy could end up with this guy. I think there's just possibilities for this character that we have yet to see. So it would very much surprise me if this is the last we see of him.
Well, regardless, Christine is gone. Tommy, she had said to Tommy, oh, the baby's wet, I need to go change the baby. And then she disappears. She leaves the baby in the bathroom, and Tommy is left screaming for Christine with a screaming baby in his arms. So, Tommy he's a not-so-happy papa right now.
No, and you can't blame the guy, right? Because what did he really sign up for this?
No, this has not gone the way that I bet that he wanted it to go. This whole take care of this girl who you are obviously attracted to in service of this man that you believe in for whatever reason, who is not returning your phone calls, who has lied to you about his mission, who has other baby mamas and protectors, at least one other pair. So I think at this point, like just to like add insult to injury, now Christine cheeses it. This is who he has just spent the better part of a year with. Now she's gone, and Tommy's on his own with this baby who is very much not his. Not a good situation for Tommy Garvey. Not to
Not
mention that this guy murdered somebody a long time ago.
Yeah, and murdered somebody in the pursuit of this cause. So I don't know exactly why. I don't know exactly why he would still feel the need to do this. His sort of "I can take care of you, I can provide for us" is a different instinct, I think, than his desire to pursue Holy Wayne's cause. I think this is Tommy wanting to do something that maybe wasn't done for him by his dad throughout his life. He wants to step up and be a man, and I think he thinks this is part of it. So it's not what he signed up for, but he's eager to help with Christine. Christine is not eager to play a part. She cheeses it, like you say. She's gone. Not good for Tommy Garvey. I feel a little bad for Tommy in this moment.
Oh, I don't feel bad for Tommy.
I was going to say, I know you don't, but I do. I feel bad for him because I know he didn't sign up for this.
Well, what are you gonna do?
Well,
Sucks to be Tommy Garvey.
turns out there's something you can do. You can just put it off on somebody else.
Right, I guess that's right.
You know?
We'll talk about that in a bit. So that's our open. We move to the credits. After the credits, we're back with the Guilty Remnant, and we've got a really good scene between Jill and Lori and the rest of the Guilty Remnant. What did you think of this scene, Antonio? Break it down for us.
It's fantastic. First of all, they played the Nothing Else Matters, the Metallica, by this 4-cello group that I love called Apocalyptica. It was awesome. That whole scene that escalated so quickly from Lori wanting Jill to go home, writing the note, Lori writing Jill a note that just says talk, not underlined, no punctuation, just says talk. And when Lori refuses, Jill just says, "Forget it. I'm going to change into the Guilty Remnant clothes now. I'm one of you guys. If you don't want to play my game, I'm going to play yours. We'll see what happens." And that whole scene just played out so phenomenal. And we see him pre-dawn getting out of the place, and then we end up in Nora's kitchen. Woof.
Oh man, yeah, that whole sequence, when they're leaving the Guilty Remnant house, they're getting into the vans. You start to flash back to all the photos that are taken, and everything is starting to come together. And now it's so crystal clear, Antonio, that what we had forecasted a few weeks ago is about to come to light. I didn't know exactly how it would manifest with the loved ones dolls. I think you and I had some confusion about exactly how it would happen. Would they wake up in the morning and all the loved ones would be in their homes? Would they be where they left them? Would they be in the church? Would they be in Reverend Matt's old church that the Guilty Remnant bought out from under him? It turns out that they are all over Mapleton, and this is going to be a problem. And I thought it was pretty clever that for the most part we don't see a ton with the loved ones doll. We see it basically, we see a few shots throughout Mapleton in kind of the really early morning hours of Mapleton before people are up and at 'em. We see a guy who's like in a yoga pose, right, in a park, and then we get to Nora's house. And we know what Nora is going to go downstairs and see. So it's almost like we don't need to see anybody else's interactions with the loved ones because we're going to see it through Nora's eyes, and that's just going to be devastating enough. And sure enough, it was. Her dropping to her knees upon seeing everybody at the breakfast table is just absolutely gutting. And on top of that, just how creepy do the loved ones dolls look? They look terrifying.
Oh my God, those are awful. Why don't they at least close their eyes?
Oh, it's so creepy. They look like I don't know. It feels like these could be horror movie characters. Like you would expect them to like start looking at her and then like coming after her like robots with like knives and stuff. It was terrifying.
Yeah, we had a tweet from Sir Pounce that said the hashtag worst Durst is the real doll daughter nightmares, and that's accurate. Total nightmares. Like I said, I don't know why they don't have eyelids on these dolls, Bill in the chat room says, did the Guilty Remnant get a discount deal on the figures? I don't know why, but I had the impression the loved ones were of a better quality. If this is what the loved ones are putting off, then these things are just creep machines. They're terrifying. I don't understand these real dolls, but I don't want them in my life at all. I don't even want to see them on the show.
I actually have to agree with that. I remember back in the Nora Durst episode, Guest, when she's at the conference and she meets, the toolbox who is who sells the loved ones dolls, tells her all about it. Didn't that loved one look a lot more like the salesman than the loved ones we're seeing here?
Yeah, the stereo always sounds nicer in the electronic shop, though.
I guess that's true.
The TV always looks brighter in the showroom. I do think that he's probably carrying around one of the best particular models that they could make, and they probably did get a cut rate deal here. It's a Guilty Remnant we're talking about. The point is, no matter if it would have looked perfect, it might not have had the impact that it had. It was the fact that it had that kind of endless valley look to it that made it so difficult to deal with for Nora Durst, and that they were seated at the table. I don't know who in the Guilty Remnant got that little piece of info from her dossier, but that was a particularly brutal place to put them. And it did make me wonder what became of Lori's doll.
What became of Lori's doll?
The doll of her baby.
Oh, my God.
I don't want to think about that. I mean, I did think about it while the show was going.
Do you think they made one?
If they did, I don't want to think about where they went with it next. And I also don't want to think about what their plan was for Kevin's doll, for that matter.
Yeah.
I don't want to take these things through to their logical conclusions, but that's the way my brain works. I'm a lawyer. That's what I was thinking about in that moment. Actually, what I was thinking about is Carrie Coon. Man, she crushed it.
She's so good.
She's so good. The silent scream, it was almost like the painting, the scream by Edvard Munch. Like there was so much emotion in it. There was a kick in the gut, and it was also sad, and it was also just totally disturbing. That moment was phenomenal. That was a really, really, really good shot by everybody that was involved there, and they really did a bang-up job.
More reasons why Nora Durst is my favorite.
She's the best Durst. Yeah. She's the best Durst.
She's the best Durst by far. Not even close. But I would have been. I'm very glad that the episode turned out the way that it did. I was getting worried. We'll get into that, but I was getting a little worried for my favorite Durst. I'll also say that I think it probably would have still had a really harrowing effect on everybody if the loved ones dolls looked like the loved ones, like looked exactly like the loved ones instead of having kind of this real artificial quality. I feel like it wouldn't have worked well for the viewers, though. I feel like it would have been like almost too sci-fi for the audience to see just the actors sitting upright in Nora Durst's house. I think the audience needed to have that creep factor even more than the characters needed to have that creep factor.
I mean, I agree. I think that like I said, the scene was both unsettling and disturbing at the same time, which are very similar things, but it was also incredibly sad. So it had that ability. They were similar enough to cause Nora to really lose it, which was very, very sad, and yet they were different enough to make us feel really, really creeped out and disturbed. So the scene really hit it on so many different levels. It was just so well done.
It was great. It was really good.
Yeah.
So let's move on from poor Nora. We're going back out into the woods, and it turns out Kevin he's used one of his lifelines. He phoned a friend.
He did. This is interesting because I feel like he struggled to get a signal a few episodes ago when he was trying to phone a friend from the woods, and yet here he sits in the cabin, no problems.
He did well. I don't know.
Yeah.
The service got restored.
Yeah, maybe the way the wind was blowing. I have those problems at home, so I can understand that.
You have problems with how the wind is blowing?
I thought you were the ones that were having those problems. I'm not sure.
I was having some of those problems before. We don't need to get into that. It sounds a lot worse than it really is.
I was going to say people on the podcast are going to think you ate chili for dinner.
Well, maybe I did, but those weren't the problems we're talking about.
Fair point.
But we do have Reverend Matt showing up. I'm surprised that this is the guy he calls. When you are talking about you've got a dead body in the middle of the woods, you probably are being set up to look like the person who killed said body. Are you going to call the holy man? Is he the guy that you call?
Sure. There's the
Really?
priest penitent privilege. He's not allowed to reveal what he learns in confession, so you can always hide under that shield and say, "Hey, I was confessing it, and the crime had already happened." There's a very famous movie by Alfred Hitchcock called "I Confess," starring Montgomery Clift as a priest, where the priest hears about a murder and confession, and then the priest comes under suspicion for the murder and can't reveal who committed it because he heard it in confession. So I don't know. I feel like I'm telling my priest when I commit something wrong, but Kevin's not really a man of faith. I don't know. I just think he had no one else to turn to in that moment.
Are you burying the body with your priest?
Josh, candidly, I probably would call you.
Well, I thought we're not supposed to talk about that.
Oh, no. Not this again. Why do I keep getting myself into
Yeah,
it?
listen, man, we rehearsed this. You're not supposed to talk about what we did in Cairo.
You're probably just going to have to end me because I just keep slipping. I keep slipping. You get me talking and I just go.
I'm going to have to release you.
If you want to release me, in the moment I know that I could count on you to do it. Any day now I shall be released, I think.
I think it's probably true. Anyway, so he calls Reverend Matt. I'm happy here. This is a good duo. I like seeing these two guys together.
Yeah, these guys are bros. I mean, they're on the same page when it comes to the guilty remnant in that I don't think they want harm to the guilty remnant, and they'll do things to protect them. We saw what Matt has done. We've seen what Kevin has done. So I think he knows he can trust Matt when the chips are down. Matt has the relationship with his family. I like seeing these guys together.
I still don't understand if Kevin knows that Matt is Nora's brother. I still don't get that aspect of it. I still don't totally understand the relationship tree here.
Do you think he thinks Fred is her brother?
I don't know. Fred Durst?
Yes.
But he disappeared, so he can't ask.
Yeah, and he did disappear. Can't ask. That is nobody's missing him. He did it all for one reason. So now that reason is gone, everything's fine.
Yeah, and you can stick that reason and
up here. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we can continue.
Yeah.
So no, we get this really good scene with Kevin and Matt in the cabin. Matt wants to close Patty's eyes. Kevin's like, you can't touch her. She's a fucking crime scene. You can't do that. But Matt, he wants to do it. He wants to close her eyes. He wants to give her peace. And Kevin says, if you touch her, then we're in this together. And Matt takes like maybe 2-3 seconds of just kind of not doing anything, but he's just giving Kevin kind of this stoic, peaceful look. That's sort of Matt's resting face. It's this stoic, peaceful look. He's always seeming, in that zone. And without another beat, he just closes her eyes. Then let's be in it together. I thought this was a really good scene.
Yeah, and this is why you call Matt, because you need somebody that's upstanding, that you can trust, that will be unquestionable. Kevin is ready to take the rap for this. He just needs help kind of putting the story in perspective and centering himself. He calls Matt, and Matt's like, I got shovels in the trunk, bud.
So you think that's Matt's call? You don't think that it's Kevin who's like, hey, will you help me bury this body? You think Matt comes to him and says, you didn't kill her. No one's going to believe that, so let's bury the body, but you didn't kill her.
I think that's probably what happened. I think he called him or texted him and said, Patty killed herself, tried to frame me or make me look responsible for it. I don't know what to do. I need your help. I'm X, Y, and Z. Here I am. And Matt shows up with shovels. I think that's probably what happened. I don't think that was what Kevin's intent was to do, is have him cover it up.
Man, that means Matt is the best friend ever.
He is.
He really is.
He is, and we can talk about that, but shortly thereafter, he certainly doesn't seem like he is.
Well, we'll get to that in a second, but I don't think we can read too much into that. Well, I mean, we could read a lot into that, but I don't think any of that stuff actually happened. Anyway,
I don't think so either.
We'll get there in a minute. So let's get to the shovels. They bury Patty. They dig a grave for her. They put her in there. But it's not a funeral without some parting words. Did you happen to transcribe what the passage was here? Or did you read anything into the passage?
Well, I went to a Catholic school for almost 12 years of my life. So I recognized in the middle of it that it was from Job. And so I've got it kind of here. It's, if I go to the east, he's not there. If I go to the west, I don't find him. When he's at work in the north, I don't see him. When he turns south, I catch no glimpse of him. But he knows the way that I take. When he has tested me, I will come forth as gold. My feet have closely followed his steps. I've kept the way without turning aside. Kevin's getting very emotional as he's reading.
Yes, he is.
I have not departed from the commands of his lips. I have treasured the words of his mouth more than my daily bread. But he stands alone, and who can oppose him? He does whatever he pleases. He carries out his decree against me, and many such plans he still has in store. That's why I'm terrified before him. When I think of all this, I fear him. God has made my heart faint. The Almighty has terrified me. And so that's pretty brutal, man.
Oh my God, that's really brutal. So what are we supposed to take from this passage that uh, life just handed you lemons and you better start making lemonade because you're about to get a lot more lemons, so you should get into the lemonade business?
Well, the biblical story of Job, right, is a bet between essentially God and Satan. That Satan just believes that people believe in God because they think good things will happen, and God says, "Nah, watch, I'll piss all over this guy." And believe me, I'm not a Bible scholar, so please don't take my literal translation as literal word. But God says, "No, I'll piss all over this guy, and he'll still follow me." And this is kind of Job's moments of doubt. And the last part of that chapter of Job says, "Yet I am not silenced by the darkness, by the thick darkness that covers my face." In other words, it's really about Job is then tested by God, and horrible things happen to him, his family, and he comes through it just on the other side stronger than ever in his belief system, and God wins this bet. Job does not back down. And I think this for Kevin really says a lot about horrible things have happened to me, and they make me fear what is out there. They
Yeah.
make me worried about what's happening. They make me terrified about what's to come, considering what's already been. But I'm gonna try to come to grips with it. I mean, I have to come to grips with it because it's happened. But what I want to know is, I want to know, did you catch the verse from Job? Obviously, there's a lot of he that's talking about God. But I want to know, did you catch any daddy issues vibes from Kevin while that was being read?
Oh well, it's a Lindelof show, so of course.
Well, that's what I mean. All the best Kevins have daddy issues, right?
Yeah, I think that that's true. No, I think that that could be a part of it. I wonder how much that's on his mind at the time. Probably a decent amount because we're about to go into Dreamland, and his father is going to play a big part in that.
Right. And I was thinking that at the beginning when he's saying things like, "He knows the way that I take. When he's tested me, I will come forth as gold. My feet have closely followed his steps."
Yeah.
That's Kevin working in the same job as his dad, living in his dad's house. "I have kept to his way without turning aside. I've tried to do the right thing as a police officer, as a father, all of these things. I've not departed from the commands of his lips, and I've treasured the words of his mouth more than my daily bread. But he stands alone, and who can oppose him?" So his dad, throughout this series, right, has told him, like, you've got to give in. You've got to accept the role that you're meant to play in all this. And Kevin's kind of bucked against it and hasn't really wanted to play a part. So I thought this was just interesting in that context.
It's an interesting scene. It's about to get a whole lot more interesting. So Matt gives Kevin a change of clothes. He would have brought his own clothes, but we have different physiques, is what he says. Is that is that something to do with sweat? Is that a sweatpants joke?
It can't be a sweatpants joke, and yet it was perfectly timed with the sweatpants controversy.
Oh my gosh, Antonio, do you want to explain to our listeners who may not know what the sweatpants controversy is?
I Why don't you explain, Josh?
Well, if you've noticed in some scenes of Kevin Garvey jogging, that it seems like he must have very maybe no underwear, loose underwear. Things are flopping around down there, and it seems like he has been blessed with.
What things? What things?
I'm talking about his genitals, Antonio.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I'm talking about his penis.
Yes, I was just checking.
And the rumor that stems from that, it's kind of the Idris Elba thing. Justin Theroux apparently is well endowed, and he went on. Was it what late night show did he go on? Did you catch that?
I think it was Conan, wasn't it?
I think it was Conan, and Conan asked him about this, and Justin Theroux kind of got very embarrassed and said that he explained the story by saying that they shot that scene. Then there was going to be another jogging scene, and the wardrobe people asked him to put on 2 pairs of underwear. So, good for you, Justin Theroux.
Yeah, hashtag humble brag.
Yeah, things seem to be going A-okay for that guy. Even if things aren't going so well for Kevin Garvey, things are going well for Justin Theroux.
Yeah, he hasn't, to what I can understand, he hasn't had a really rough life, that guy.
No, it's going well for him, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, things are good. So that aside, he puts on this new pair of clothes. He gets in the car with Matt. They're driving around. Did you hear what was being talked about on the radio by any chance, Antonio?
What was that? I caught snippets of that.
I caught a couple of snippets, nothing too specific. What I heard was a daring escape, and I heard tri-state manhunt. So somebody must have broken out of prison. I guess that must have alluded to the Holy Wayne situation, maybe.
It's very possible, and that would be why Aftech was running into the bathroom and looking for him almost right away. He was wounded from something. I think that probably is it. The underwater spider's bubble got burst.
I would have liked to have seen some of that stuff.
You want to see the action and adventure of Holy Wayne?
This is what I said a few weeks ago, that I would actually like to see the Holy Wayne episode to see if there's any reason to be invested in this stuff. It sounds like some interesting things happened. I would have liked to have at least seen that. Maybe I would have cared a little bit more.
Yeah, and that's interesting. We didn't see that in the flashback, right? We didn't see anything from Holy Wayne, and we didn't see anything from Meg. And Meg makes some sense because we know we don't necessarily need to see what was happening with her because we had heard from Meg that we just knew from Meg's story that her mom had died or the day before, right?
Right.
And we had someone reach out to us on Twitter. It was Jeff, he was at Spider Legs Music, and I believe Jeff asked why they didn't show Liv Tyler or Holy Wayne in the 1014 app, and we kind of both speculated on Twitter that it was probably because for Meg we knew, but Holy Wayne, there might have been some interest in that. Maybe we could have seen that.
It could have been interesting.
But he was probably working a freaking desk job. He was probably just some kind of schlep who was working at a box company in Tustin, California.
Oh, really? Is he hanging out with Randy Nations?
Oh, see, I told you we could get another one in here, didn't I?
There you go. So Kevin falls asleep, and as Kevin is wont to do, he wakes up in a very bad situation, or at least we're being led to believe that he's waking up in a very bad situation. And he gets yanked out of the car. It's nighttime now. He's getting yanked out by orderlies. This is the same mental hospital that his father is staying in. Is that right from the outset? Like is that are we on the same page?
Yeah, I suspected that, but wasn't 100% sure.
I wasn't 100% sure either. At first, I kind of thought maybe he was being abducted by the guilty remnant.
So did I.
As it progressed, it's clear, he's in the mental institution, and it seems that Matt has dropped him off there. You see Matt get out of the car and be like, "I'm sorry, I had no choice. There was no other choice." They mace him. They mace Kevin. They put mace in his eye. You never do that. That's so terrible.
Yeah, never go full mace on a police chief.
Yeah, wow, the tables have turned, huh?
Yeah, what is this, Ferguson, Missouri?
Oh my gosh, Antonio, controversial. So he's freaking out. He's flipping out. They lock him in a padded cell. He's trying to calm himself down. He's saying, "You're okay. Just calm down. Stay calm. You'll be okay." He seems to calm down. He goes into the corner. Someone slides in that issue of National Geographic, which does have the little Cairo nod in there, which is pretty cool. And there's a note that says, "Stop effing talking to yourself, and they'll let you watch TV." This is pretty good parenting.
I knew, right? Yeah, that's very good parenting. It's like, well, we won't put you on timeout if you'll just shut up for 5 minutes.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. So he shuts up. The orderly comes back in, asks him if he's going to behave himself. Kevin's like, "Yeah, sure, cool." I'm trying to figure out how much time is passing here. That's one of the things that I'm trying to latch onto here, because everything's obviously, this is all very sudden. Things are happening quickly. You know that stuff in Mapleton is going to hit a fever pitch pretty soon. That's not going to not go from 6 to midnight pretty quickly. And meanwhile, in this mental institution, things seems like it kind of seemed like he was there for a little while. So I'm trying to follow along with the speed of this story. But anyway, he gets brought into the TV room, and he gets to have 10 minutes with dear old dad.
Yeah, it would have been easier if he walked out with like a Duck Dynasty beard, so that he'd been sort of like
right.
Sort of a little Count of Monte Cristo style in there for a while. But no, it isn't clear exactly what's happening. It's sort of a surreal experience because we see his father from behind before we see him from the front. His dad looks different, right? The hair's been cut, he's shaven and shorn, and it's not 100% clear how much time has passed even since his father's been in there, or what are we dealing with here? His dad looks different.
He does.
And that's all really surreal and really rattling. And that is not, if that were the only thing in this scene that was surreal and that was a little bit off kilter, we would be okay. But unfortunately, or fortunately, it wasn't.
Yeah, this is an interesting scene. I'm not really sure what to make of it, both in terms of the content of the scene and what it means for the greater scheme of the leftovers, and also I don't know if I love this scene, to be honest with you, Antonio.
Well, Kevin's dad tells him the bad men end up in here. And if you remember, the woman, before she took Kevin into her hotel, asked Kevin if he was a good guy, and he basically said no.
Yes.
Basically, he said, I'm a bad guy. He didn't really say it, but that was the implication. He took his personal inventory in that moment, and in that moment, he evaluated himself as a bad person. And so I don't know, if you think about the Job Bible verse and you think about all of those things about following in his father's footsteps and, following those rules, if Kevin's really thinking about, is he going to end up like his dad, and if that's weighing heavily on him. But hearing his dad say, I'm a bad person, I ended up in here because I'm bad, and then Kevin's dad goes on this speech about what happened in the moment on the departure, the Holy Trinity, my heart, my mind, and my balls, they all knew. None of us wondered why we were still here. We knew. That's what he's saying. So if this is Kevin's subconscious and this is his id or his psyche or somewhat speaking to him about what he thinks about himself, the scene is at least interesting on that level. That if we're diving into, with the Bible verse, with this scene, and with the scene in the diner, how Kevin truly feels about what happened on October 14th and how he was feeling before then and shortly after that, I think these are all really good glimpses of what Kevin feels about himself and what he felt about himself at that time and where he is right now. So I like the scene on that level, but I don't like the scene for the mind F that it is. I think that it's really too much.
If his father is Kevin's id, then what is Patty?
I don't even want to know. It's like his super cigarette, like what, tobacco stained twat ego. I have no idea.
That's a quote. That is a quote.
Yeah, I'm not making that up. I don't think that about Patty. That was from Kevin's dad. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. That's a really dark part of his brain that keeps popping up there.
It certainly is, and it's a very strange moment here. Kevin's father says, "Don't turn around." He turns around. He sees Patty, and Kevin is saying, "This isn't happening. This isn't real." She says, "It's happening. It's real. I'm here." She starts to straddle him. Kevin says, "But you're dead. I buried you." And she says, "Not deep enough," as
Oh
she's
boy.
rocking on him. So she also says, "Looks like we're going to be travel companions for a little while." Should we take this that these are going to be Kevin Garvey's sexual fantasies for the next little while? Is going to involve Patty?
I hope that's not true. Let's
Well,
assume.
I would be okay with it if it means we get more Patty on the show, because I do like the character and I love Ann Dowd's performance. But
But what if she's just going to R and a C every time?
that might just be how it goes.
The R was for rock, I think. By the way, I don't know why I made it an R.
There you go. It's
I
fine.
don't know why I didn't say the full word.
It's okay.
No, it's interesting. She's gonna be in his head for a while, regardless of anything else. She really is, because whether it was a literal F or a mind F, she definitely F'd him, and there's no doubt about that's something that lingers. That being in that cabin and having to deal with having some crazy woman spouting poetry at you, and then slicing her throat with a freaking piece of glass and dying right in front of you is not something you just walk away from, no matter who you are, unless you're like Jack Bauer. And then maybe at the end of like 24 episodes, you go into a car and you cry to yourself, and that's that. But otherwise, you don't walk away from this. This is something that is going to be with you for a while. And she has said to him in that moment, "You need to get out." Kevin Sr. is basically saying, no, he needs to stay. I don't know where the get out versus the stay is coming in, but she says, you need to get out. And the dad says, Kevin Sr. says, "You leave with her, you leave with her." What's
Yeah.
that supposed to even mean? I don't even know.
It's some of that sweet leftovers riddling that doesn't always land well with me.
I think that the word you're looking for is Lindelofing.
Lindelofing is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, she was Lindeling him off.
So as this scene is happening, is there any part of you, Antonio, that is thinking that this is really happening? Or at this point, do you know it's a dream, or do you think that he is in the mental hospital, that Kevin is in the mental hospital, and he is seeing visions, and yeah, he's gone full crazy? What were you thinking in this moment?
So I'd been operating under this kind of super theory that Kevin's being messed with, that he's being drugged, that he's being plagued with a purpose by people for some larger reason. And if the show was interested in giving us answers, that would have been a possible explanation. As we find out with this episode, and as we've probably known all along, the show isn't particularly interested in giving us answers. Yes, we did get an answer to who killed Gladys. Yes, we have gotten answers to some of the other mysteries the show has presented, but for everyone we've gotten an answer for, it's given us two or three more, which is something that's very familiar to you and I, Josh. And so this is something where in the moment I thought maybe he was just super drugged up. Like, we don't know how much time has passed. It was very surreal. I didn't think, though, in my mind was thinking, there's no way we've gone past Memorial Day. Kevin has to see the stuff that's happening on Memorial Day.
Unless he gets out of the mental hospital and the world has ended, which is maybe another direction they were going in.
Sounds like a Twilight Zone episode, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or like 28 days later.
It's not fair. It's not fair.
Yeah, I finally had time.
Yeah, I had time now.
Yes. So, or it could be like a 28 days later type thing where he just wakes up and he finally gets out, and when he does leave, there really is nothing left because the guilty remnant started some shit in Mapleton and it spread everywhere. I don't know. But in the moment, I'm thinking there's no chance this is real because I saw her body buried as well, and I know she didn't come back from what she did. There was blood lost. It wasn't one of those situations where she could have been unconscious or shot. She bled out. There's no coming back from that.
There's no coming back from that, and of course it does turn out to be a dream. Kevin is still in the car. The car lurches to a stop. Kevin doesn't know where they are, and Matt says, I got hungry. Let's go get cheeseburgers.
Fantastic.
Because Matt's just the best friend ever, apparently.
He's a bro.
He buries bodies on command. He gets you cheeseburgers. He gets you dressed. So they end up there at the diner. It's Patty's favorite diner.
Yeah, of course it's Patty's Diner, right? Like, what other diner would it be?
There are no other diners in the world of the leftovers. They all disappeared. This is the only one left.
Well, this one has damn good breakfast, Josh.
Apparently, really good breakfast.
This is where you go. Cheeseburgers?
Solid cheeseburgers.
Yeah.
And then this is another really good scene, I thought, with Matt and Kevin talking, and Matt saying, what did she say to you before she killed herself? And Kevin says, what does it matter? And Matt says, I want to help the remnant. I'm supposed to do this, and I need to know why she did what she did. And so it gets very, very emotional very quickly here.
It does. Shit gets real.
It does. And Kevin, he starts crying. He's sobbing. He says, she wanted to, she said I'd understand. Matt says, well, I'm pretty sure that you understand because if she wanted to deliver a message by cutting her own throat, she would be confident that you would receive it before she did. So what did you understand? And he says he understands why we didn't go. He understands why we're still here. Did he fully articulate the reasons here?
I don't think so. I think it's interesting. Bill in our chat room said Matt was hoping the last thing Patty said was he could have his church back.
Yeah, right.
Did she say anything about a church by any chance? Did she mention me at all?
Does she have any money she left for me?
Yeah, that scene I thought though was very. I mean, it was very emotional, and it.
Good performances.
Kevin said, "What did you understand?" When Matt asked Kevin, "What did you understand?" Kevin says, "Why we didn't go, why we're still here," and he took whatever Patty was saying to be very personal to him. Before it happened, I wanted to leave. I wanted to be free of my family. I wanted all of these things, and that when it happened, this is what happened. I couldn't help. I didn't know what to do. I went to Jill's school, and I just wanted to help Jill, and then I wanted to go back to my family. And so he didn't necessarily understand. I don't think this is what Patty wanted him to understand, but this is what Kevin took out of it.
Yeah, it's a good scene, though. And I also like Matt's reaction to finding out that Kevin was sleeping with somebody during the departure. And he's like, wait, she disappeared while you were with her? That's crazy.
Yeah, he wanted the details, right?
He's like, tell me more.
Are you sure she didn't hide under the sheets? Did you look?
Did you check for a long extended sequence? Yeah, and I also liked hearing that he was in his uniform, and so people kept coming up to him asking for help, and he couldn't help. He didn't know what to do. It's almost this is he's describing the next episode that we never got to see. The the following episode after the Garveys at their best. It would probably be called the Garveys at their worst. And it's an episode that I don't think that we are likely to see on The Leftovers. We don't need to. We hear it from Kevin here that what happened next, what happened after all of the departures took place. Interesting stuff. I really liked it, and I think it's a better acted scene than than how it's written. This is something that, and sorry to do the Lost thing again, it's something that we talk about on Lost Lives, on our Lost Lives podcast, Antonio, is how sometimes on that show the acting would really, really rise above the performances. Evangeline Lilly as Kate, I think, is the one that I tend to point to. I think in this scene, Justin Theroux really just wailed it out of the park. I thought that he was really excellent in this scene.
He did, and we've been talking about how. Let's start with when he's literally burying Patty and Matt, and the Job verse really makes him struggle. And Matt, of course, asks him to read it. It should be Matt's job to read that benediction. It should be Matt's job as a priest to read over the body that he's burying. He makes Matt do it. So he's pushing Matt over to that edge. Matt is pushing Kevin over to that edge. When Kevin falls asleep, we know what Kevin was thinking about. We had actually a really good observation in our chat room from Eric Cummings, who thought that Patty might have represented Kevin's thought process regarding Lori, that the relationship is dead, but he'll still have feelings for her despite the fact that he tried to bury them. I think that's a good observation.
That's cool. I like that.
That could very well be what what Patty does represent to Kevin. Patty and Lori being so tied up in the guilty remnant and having that weird relationship where Lori was Patty's therapist, and then there was a time when Lori told Patty everything. And so that's very possible that's all wrapped up in that. That said, I don't think Patty's plan with the guilty remnant was to push ultimately Kevin and Lori back together. I don't think that was the grand design of the guilty remnant. So that may be partially what she represents to Kevin, but as we see in the next moment in the diner, what we were just talking about, Kevin was a guy who didn't want to be with Lori before October the 14th. He didn't want his role of the family. He didn't want to own it.
He wanted to leave.
He wanted to leave. He didn't want to just accept that was it. And it was interesting because his father told him, this is it. This is what you've got. You should like it. And after October 14th, you hear him tell Matt, that's what I wanted, and I didn't have it. And I think that's really important for the next scene.
Yeah, he started to lose them one by one.
Yep, he started to lose them one by one. Tommy was gone, Lori was gone, then Jill was gone, and I'm not even sure. We don't even know if he knows about the baby.
Yeah, we still don't know if he knows about that.
Right, and he never got the dog that he was going to get. So his ideal family and the idyllic way that it was being represented, one by one went crashing down after the departure. And so that fell apart, even though that was the moment where he started to want it the most.
And Matt gives Kevin his best Good Will Hunting Robin Williams impression and says, "It's not your fault." He grabs his hand, and that kind of hit a nerve with me. I was very sad.
Yeah, that was tough. At least Matt's hands weren't hairy.
No, they weren't. I would have been okay with that. I really would have.
They could have put some fake hair on his knuckles.
So we go from this really sad, emotional, kind of depressing scene to easily the happiest scene in the history of The Leftovers when Kevin goes to the bathroom and hears some crying in the stall, and he knocks on the door and pushes it open, and oh, happy day, Holy Wayne is in there with a gut shot. He's been shot.
I just can't imagine.
I'm just in the Wigler household tonight. I was just
going to say. Were you popping bottles?
I was pretty stoked. I believe I tweeted, yeah, woo! I was very excited. Very excited to see that Holy Wayne was moments away from death.
Did you make some flowers?
I did not make flowers.
That's too bad. That wasn't, but close, I think.
Close. I mean, it was a similar feeling to making flowers. Is how happy I was.
It was elation. You giggled at the end. Yeah, we don't need to get into that.
So it's clear how I feel about Holy Wayne. I don't like Holy Wayne that much. I know you don't love Holy Wayne either. But what are you thinking in this scene when Kevin pushes the bathroom stall door open and there's Holy Wayne bleeding out on the toilet? Are you kind of excited about where this might be going next? Or are you kind of like me? I mean, I was psyched to see that this storyline seems like it's about to get cut off. The other part of me was kind of just like, what the hell is this guy doing so close to Mapleton? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I still don't know why either. If only for dramatic necessity or for convenience factor, he was there. as I said, he's been on the run pretty much since we've known him. We saw him with the Buddy Garrity moments in the first episode with Peter Berg as a guard, and everything was hunky-dory and everyone was happy. And then Peter Berg was dead, and he's hugging corpses, and he's getting car trunks, and he's running from place to place, and he's on the go, and things for Holy Wayne aren't going very well. And he knows that he has premonised his own death, if you will. He knows that it's coming. It's something that he's seen. He's precognated it. It's something that's been in his brain, and we've heard him say it multiple times. I'm at the end of my life. It's going to happen soon. Bad things are coming for me. So he's been on the run. He knows it's happening, and it doesn't surprise me that geographically he's covered that much area to really represent how much he's been on the run. Why he's this close to Mapleton and all the gin joints in the world, this is the one he stumbled into, I don't know. Other than dramatic convenience, I can't come up with a really good answer.
I was very curious about where this scene was going. So they start talking. Kevin's like, okay, I'm gonna go get help here because you're bleeding and this doesn't look good. And Holy Wayne says, no, please don't. I'll be dead in a minute. There's no help for me. Please don't leave me alone. And then he says, will you do something for me, a favor, stranger to stranger? And I'm kind of thinking that Holy Wayne's gonna be like, I'm gonna be dead in like 60 seconds. Can you just like, I don't know, when I'm dead, like maybe kiss me on the lips?
Yeah,
hug me and kiss me when I'm
Tell
gone.
me you'll miss me.
Because Holy Wayne loves kissing dead bodies, so I kind of felt like he was going to ask Kevin to return the favor.
I'd never let you do it to me while I was alive.
Exactly. Exactly. But now that I'm dead, this seems like this would be okay, and you are very attractive, and I saw you on Conan the other night.
Right.
So.
Somebody's provided you with a nice fitting sweatpant.
Yeah, so somebody has already granted your wish. So yeah, but so he asks Kevin to make a wish, and he, Kevin is kind of like, huh, what? And Holy Wayne says, well, I think I'm a fraud, but if I'm not, I can give you anything you want, and that will mean that I was real. So I can do this before I go. Don't say it out loud. Just think of a wish. And their eyes meet, and Kevin has clearly thought of something. Maybe it's the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. That's kind of what I'm thinking, maybe. And Holy Wayne looks into his eyes, and he smiles, and he says, "Granted." And then he dies and just drools everywhere. He's just drooly Wayne.
Well, the unfortunate thing is, if you're gonna go, you really don't care what happens after, right?
I guess not. You could probably just not drool everywhere if you can help it.
I don't think you can help it. I think you're dead.
He's very drooly.
He is very drooly, and he's like Drooly Andrews at that point.
Yeah, he's Drooly Wayne, and it's really gross. And the cops burst in, and they put Kevin on the ground. They put Holy Wayne on the ground, and like I thought that we were done seeing Drooly Wayne.
No, more drool. This is like bloody drool.
But now it's like bloody, like dead drool. It's just Drooly Wayne is like my only character on the show that I like less than Holy Wayne.
They managed to find a way to make him worse in death than he was in life.
Yeah, I don't like Drooly Dead Wayne. Dead Drooly Wayne is not my favorite character.
Well, he's I don't think he's going to show up again, so I think we're free of him at last.
You don't think that we will see him in a flashback at some point? I would be shocked if we don't.
Well, that's a very good observation. I get a little concerned now that the show has some legs and we've gotten ourselves a second season. I'm a little worried the Tommy flashback will happen.
Oh,
I know. The whole noise. That noise represents the whole feeling my body makes when I think about it.
Can we just pencil in some fill-in guests for that podcast next season for the Tommy flashback? I don't think I want to be here for that.
That'll be our laryngitis episode.
Yeah, I'm sick, Mother. I can't podcast tonight.
I have a wish, and it's that someone take my place.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not down for the Tommy flashback. I would rather avoid that if possible. What do you think Kevin's wish was?
Well,
stop drooling. Don't drool when you die.
Oh, granted.
Oh, he's drooling everywhere. He's a fraud.
Oh, he's a fraud. The fraud is drooling.
Yeah.
This in the moment, I didn't think that it was. Kevin thought his wish in his head, so he could have wished for a yacht, right? We're not going to know exactly what he wished for. However, what the show had just told us was that Kevin had wished, and what he had just been talking about, what he wanted, after October 14th was to be able to go back to what his family was like. He had literally just got done telling Matt that,
Mm-hmm.
is that he wanted to be able to go back to that. So that's what's in his head when he's talking to Wayne. So, of course, that's what it feels like that he wished for. That's what he had just got done saying. And I think that we'll see how the episode plays out, whether you can decide whether you feel that Holy Wayne was a fraud or not in light of that. But let's say that Kevin wished for things to, for him, go back to how they were before October 14th. There are some signs that maybe that wish is true-ish.
Yeah, I can certainly see. I think we can just get into it now, just because we're on the topic. But I can definitely see how season 2 of The Leftovers is positioned to be Kevin rebuilding his family, and whether that means that he is, getting his nuclear band back together, where it's going to be Lori and Tommy and Jill and Kevin happy at home. I don't know. I kind of have a hard time seeing that reconciliation between Lori and Kevin, especially after everything that Lori basically just put into action in Mapleton. I don't see how those two get back together. But you also have Nora, who has baby Wayne, who is Wayne's daughter.
Little Wayne is the name of that child.
Baby Drooly. She's also very drooly. I think Drooly Wayne is droolier than the baby, though, which is embarrassing.
Drooly Wayne is droolier than Little Wayne.
Yeah, little Drooly is with Nora now, and Nora seems to have turned to Kevin and Jill and says, "Look what I've found." And you can see how maybe that family might be something that starts coming together. But I get the sense, based on the ending, that there's a little bit of hope in the air. That there's a little bit of a chance at the Garveys in some way, shape, or form rebounding from all of this.
The other shoe to drop on that, though, is that Kevin was effed up the whole season, having dreams and nightmares, heavily medicated, misplacing shirts, having kitchens that were destroyed by deer or maybe not, having horrible things happen, losing track of time, getting his hand bitten, hanging out with the BBA. He's just had a rough go of it. So
where's the BBA?
Wither the BBA. We didn't have any BBA in the flashback either, I might add. So you're right. There is reason to believe there is hope for Kevin Garvey, but there's a major other shoe in that respect, and that's that the Kevin Garvey that we've known is pretty effed up, and we don't know. I don't think that what happens in the rest of this episode cures that. We had a good observation from Justin Cooley in our chat room along these lines, which was that assuming Garvey wished things would go back to how they used to be, it came true. He has a daughter who now looks up to him, a woman he loves, a son that isn't biologically his, although I think that's a daughter, right? Lil Wayne?
Well, yeah. Well, his son is
Tommy.
Tommy, yeah.
Yeah, but Lil Wayne, the child that isn't biologically his in this example, is actually a woman.
Right.
And even the dog the family was considering getting, as seen in the flashback. So I do think that there's a parallel there, but we didn't see the Kevin Garvey we knew before the departure from last episode wasn't necessarily crazy, although there were some hints when he was waking up at the side of the bed and looking at the alarm clock turning to 6, watching it happen, that he was already going and trending into a weird place. He was restless and he wasn't happy. And so that's the Kevin Garvey we knew before, but the one we know now is really screwed up. So even though he might be able to make some positive progress with Nora, who herself has said she can't be fixed and is broken, and this baby that isn't his, and Jill, who's almost died in a fire, I don't think we can expect glory for the Garveys in season 2.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I think it's an interesting spot for them, though. I don't know if it's never gonna be happy-go-lucky on The Leftovers, but I think that it's a somewhat uplifting note that they end on. But before we get to anything uplifting, there's so much more depressing stuff to talk about. So we can kind of. So Holy Wayne is dead. Drooly Wayne is gone. The FBI or whoever it is, it's the ATF, right?
It's they call it AFTEC now because I think they added some things in cults.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
So AFTEC is interrogating Kevin, and they ask him, did he talk about Russia? Did he make any physical contact? Well, we just made out. It was fine.
Yeah.
We just kissed a little, and then the Matt comes to Kevin's side and says he's a cop. Let him go. And the guy's like, why didn't you tell me you're a cop? It's fair. You should probably have identified yourself. But he was off duty, so it's cool. But he sends him on home to Mapleton. They get back to Mapleton, and it is like The Walking Dead out there. It is terrifying.
Right.
It's scary. There's people on the streets. There are members of the guilty remnant being tied up to poles. There's a woman who's shooting after guilty remnant. Is that the mother from the first scene of the show?
I think it is, and that is she's screaming like, "Look what they're doing!" and she's got a gun. I think it's that same woman. Yeah.
I think so too. And so, Meg is tied up to a pole. Kevin runs up to her and unties her. She's bleeding. She's hurt. And he says, "What happened? What happened? What did you people do?" And he gives her the pad and pen, and she says, "We made them remember." And that's just dandy. Good job, Guilty Remnant. You did it.
Yeah. And she's so smug in that moment. She's very Patty. She's very clear and confident, and she may as well just hung a banner that said "Mission Accomplished" behind her.
Yeah, really.
She feels really good about what happened. She's okay getting the crap kicked out of her, apparently.
And so it only gets worse. Kevin and Matt, they push on through Mapleton. They just see chaos everywhere. They eventually can't even drive through anymore because all these cars are just piled up basically on each other. Kevin moves forward towards this burning, fire in the background, which we're going to see is the Guilty Remnant compound.
Yeah.
He walks past the mayor and asks if she's all right. And she says, "You were right. You were right." So what was he right about? That the Guilty Remnant should be executed? What is he right about here?
He was right that they were ginning up for a fight, that they were really ready to push him all
Yeah.
along. He's been saying it since day one. They're really combative and they're trying to push us over the edge. And he was right about that. I mean, if you had like a Shan meter, at that point the status of the Shan meter is hit with fit.
Yeah, it's loaded with fit. It is
It's fit covered.
saturated. It
It's
is
just
covered in fit, and
saturated.
it is saturated, and he just keeps pushing through because he's got no matter how he feels about her, he's got an investment in the Guilty Remnant because his ex-wife or soon-to-be ex-wife is a part of that scene. So he goes to he gets a gun, he goes through, he loads up with his bulletproof vest. He keeps walking through. We see the poor elderly couple burning their son, the loved one of their son. It's so brutal. It's so brutal.
Yeah, it's really
People just
brutal. And
launching the loved ones on the
that
fire. It's just
that and the guy, the older man, screaming at that moment, he's really lost it. And this is a family who's dealt with a lot in their life, from dealing and caring for their son, which they admitted was a struggle at times, and which of course probably was for them, to having to deal with the questions like we saw. And it was particularly difficult for them because the questions were very much like, how many other countries has your son traveled to, and how many sexual partners has he had, and all sorts of things that were really one-size-fits-all questions that did not fit their family at all. And then we saw them in flashback dealing with the pennies and the things that happened when the deer came into their house. So to see this guy in this moment actually snap was pretty brutal.
it was really tough. And then we see some guy dragging Lori out of the house, and he's what is he about to do to Lori here? We will never find out because Kevin just marches up to the guy and just beats him with his gun. He just cold cocks him, and then he picks up Lori, who is making noises. And this is, we finally got to see Lori speak in the penultimate episode because it was a flashback. But up until then, the most noise that we ever heard from Lori was her shushing Meg. Now
Right.
she's starting to pant. We're starting to hear noises coming out of her. She's starting to sound frantic, and then she lets out one word, "Jill," because Jill is in the house. And
Yeah.
it's oh, God. So, everybody remembers now. It's not just the non-guilty remnants of Mapleton. The guilty remnant remembers as well. This is the breaking point for Lori.
Yeah, she's gone feral. I mean, it's an animal guttural scream that comes out of her, just Jill, just horrible voice that she screams out, and she can barely get it out. It's an explosion, and it you kind of wish that she hadn't spoken in the October 14th episode. If this was the only word other than shh that she spoke all season, it would have been incredible. But even in the moment where she says it in the modern day, having that being the only word she says in our prime timeline is still really, really impactful. And
First word she's said in a year, I think.
Yeah,
maybe,
it's
maybe
really
more.
tough.
Patty says it a few episodes back of how long it had been since Lori had spoken. I think it's at least a year, maybe more.
Right, it's at least a year and maybe more. And given the opportunity to speak in previous episodes, she hasn't.
Yeah, she stays quiet, so she
Yeah.
lets it out here, and
Yeah.
it's intense. And Kevin goes in. It's a pretty cool scene. He's going in through the house and looking for Jill. He pulls a man off of a woman. The woman isn't Jill, so he doesn't care. He just keeps going, and eventually he finds her and he gets her out of there. And it's intense. It's a really intense scene.
Yeah, it is. There's a guy just self-immolating in the corner, just
Yeah.
quietly drifting away into the flames. It's terrifying.
It's terrifying. It's really scary. So we get past that, and we get basically the final sequence of the episode, which is going to be a montage with the soundtrack is going to be Nora Durst's letter that to me sounded like a suicide letter, and I was just not happy with that at all. I was not thrilled about that.
Yeah, she did it. That was I was not thrilled with it, but I mean, Carrie Coon. I can't say enough. The way that the letter was being read was a way that was somehow different than other shows' voiceovers typically go. You could sense the emotion and the struggle in her voice. It didn't really sound like her on all
It sounded
levels.
alien. It
Right.
sounded like alien Nora Durst.
Right. It was really, really good. That was an incredible Dear Kevin letter that she wrote. I was worried when she said, I took a shortcut, but it
Yeah.
led me back home. I found them right where I left them, right where they left me. There's no fixing it. I'm beyond repair. Maybe we all are. This is suicide note stuff.
Yeah, and she's like, but then when she says, I can't go on with the way that I'm living, but I don't have the power to die, I'm like, yes, okay, cool. All right, good. Okay, so she's just gonna leave, and like season two will maybe be a little bit of where's Nora, but she'll be alive. So I was okay at that point. At that point, anything other than dying was going to be okay. That was going to be acceptable to me.
Yeah, that I thought was a very big save for us that didn't happen. You had mentioned off the air while we were talking that you were worried she's going to load up that car and just drive into a ravine or something.
Yeah.
And it would be just like The Leftovers to have that happen. But thankfully, that wasn't the case. I don't know. I think you have not read the book that this was based on, although I did order it and it is in my possession. I don't know if in the book she dies or she doesn't die, or if there is a suicide, or if she drives off a cliff, or if she just disappears, or if this is the ending we get. But I was very worried that we were going to get the death there. Bill in the chat room says he was all like, "Why didn't Jill take her gun?" So that there was a gun right in her hand there that Nora could have ended her life with because Jill didn't take it away. But thankfully she didn't.
I was very scared, but she's okay, and we get to see some things in this final sequence. We see Lori kind of looking kind of longingly, or at least affectionately. She's studying Kevin and Jill by the ambulance, and Kevin kind of looks back at her. They don't get back together. Lori goes off on her own. She goes to the statue. Uh, Kevin and Jill walk home. They find the dog. While Lori is by the statue, she finds Tommy. And then Nora goes to Kevin's house. It's Kevin's house, right?
Yeah, it's
She goes
Kevin's
to
house.
Kevin's house to leave the
Yeah.
letter that she's written. So we've heard all of the contents of the letter at this point. I'm kind of thinking now that it seems like she's going to be alive, that it's going to be like Kevin like reading this is going to be the final thing of the season. It's just going to be very sad. But it doesn't seem like he's ever going to read it at all, because she goes there to drop off the letter, but she finds little Drooly. She finds baby Drooly, and it seems like she's got a new purpose now.
Yeah, and just like that, right? It didn't take anything for her to snap out of it and snap out of her whatever it was, her ennui that was going to drive her away from Mapleton. And then there's baby Drooly, Lil Wayne, and she's back in the mix.
Baby Julie is back. That's really cool. It's a good moment for Nora. I love her having look what I found. That's a really good scene. It's great with Kevin and Jill, who has not been the biggest Nora fan. Seems like Jill is a little cooler towards Nora
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
So I like that. But what the hell, Tommy leaving the baby?
Yeah, well, it's a really.
What?
We talked about how Tommy was getting screwed over. This is a dick move by Tommy.
No love for Tommy Garvey from me. Let me
No,
let me just say this is not okay. This is bad. This is just as bad as Christine. It's not good.
well, I'm given to wonder if he knocked on the door and they weren't home, and and he didn't want to wait around, so he left the baby, and he plans to come back, but I don't think he's going to come back.
I get the sense that he's not coming back.
Yeah, I get the sense that he and Mama Lori are going to hit the road.
Road trip.
Which is not good. I don't need to see more Tommy Garvey travels the. I don't need to see No Reservations with Tommy Garvey.
Yeah, I don't need that show.
No, I have reservations about that.
I have reservations about that. I don't know how I feel about Tommy and Lori on the road. I kind of just want the show to stick in Mapleton, or if it leaves Mapleton, only for little stretches at a time. I liked the New York City episode with Nora Durst because we were with Nora Durst and because it was a business trip. I don't need to go on a cross-country road trip.
You like television shows about business trips.
I do. It's fun. I don't need another Tommy on the road story. That's the last thing I need.
I don't need it either. But let me ask you a question. If it's got Lori in the mix, if Lori is in the mix, are you going to find it any more compelling?
I'll find it more compelling because I really like her.
Right.
But I will also probably think like, oh, great, the season 2 Lori story has been ruined by Tommy Garvey.
Maybe they'll get into a Lori and ride across the country.
What a weird thing to say.
That's the way my brain works.
That's a good brain. I like your brain.
I'm sorry. No, I wonder if they're not going to hook up with the minister, with Elvin, with the guy from the Cosby Show. I wish I could remember the guy's name. It's Jeffrey something, but Jeffrey Owens. Jeffrey Owens. I think that's right. Yeah. So I think that it's possible they end up with him or his crew, and they end up do-gooders and some kind of anti-guilty remnant, if you will. The guilty remnant were trolls. They were prodding people. They were just pushing people over the edge. And I wonder if Lori's turn isn't something where she's maybe going to try to sow the seeds of good and go with Johnny Appleseed there of goodness. Jeffrey Owens and her and Tommy and Jeffrey would somehow be involved with the storyline for season 2. And in that way we would see a little bit more of America from that standpoint, not from the Gary, Indiana, trunks and cheap motel standpoint of Tommy's previous road trip.
So let's start wrapping up here. So we talked about what was in the finale. Let's talk about what was not in the finale, which was confirmation one way or the other if Kevin Garvey is crazy or if he's being manipulated. The BBA does not appear in this episode. This was a big theory that you were championing a few weeks ago. Are you disappointed that we didn't get anything more with this theory? Do you think that this is something that they should have really kind of addressed? Do you think that this was a season 1 mystery that needed to be, if not put to bed in season 1, then at least driven home a little bit harder in the finale?
I'm sort of happy that it wasn't, because I like knowing that that's in play for season 2. I don't need it driven that much farther home to know that Kevin's kind of a screwed up guy. I like that his dream that we saw in this episode, where we saw him go when he went to bed and laid his head down tonight, was so effed up and so fraught with the characters that we'd seen. I feel like that puts into play a lot more in terms of maybe some of the stuff that was happening to Kevin really was in Kevin's head, and that Kevin's head really is screwed up and that he wasn't being screwed around with. What I don't understand is, and what I felt a little bit less comfortable with is, I still don't know what Patty's game was with Kevin. I don't know why Patty. Yeah, I don't know why Patty was pushing Kevin the way she was pushing him, because candidly,
what does Patty being dead accomplish here?
Nothing, because
yeah, I can't.
I mean, unless Matt was the great savior handing Kevin the Book of Job and burying the body with him, and that changed the game, because Kevin comes back to town and he gets it together pretty damn quick. He's kitted up within 5 minutes. He's grabbing a vest. He's walking and talking and putting it on at the same time, getting a gun, running into a house, saving his daughter, ordering people to disperse and keep order and get the fire trucks through and do all this stuff. So she jumps right back in.
She does all of this just to keep the best cop in Mapleton away from Mapleton during Chaos Day?
And it doesn't work.
That seems like an overreach for Patty. Bad plan, Patty.
Yeah.
You probably could have done this a better way.
I don't know I don't know why she felt she needed to die for all of that. And we didn't really talk about this, but I don't know that Lori knew that Patty was going to do what Patty did. I don't
think she did. I think that it's implied that Lori is surprised to have to be the person behind the wheel here.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know that Patty even did it on purpose. I don't know that. We know that Patty killed herself on purpose. We do know that that happened. But as for the way she was
You don't think that
captured,
was an accident? You don't think that she's like, just kidding? Oh
I
no!
slipped, I tripped. Oh, I sneezed and I've cut my throat. This is a
Right.
very difficult and unfortunate proposition I found myself in here. I was picking up a piece of glass as a souvenir and I've accidentally nicked a little bit out of my neck.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that was what happened. I do think that, but the BBA and Kevin kidnapped her while Kevin was awake, and I don't know if that was her plan. We saw as the BBA was walking out of the cabin, he says, "Shut up, I tried." And I don't know if he's saying "shut up, I tried" to Patty, like, "Hey, you wanted me to do this," or "shut up, I tried" to the voices that Kevin's dad was hearing. We don't know that, and so I don't need to have those things answered. But I will say, the Cairo episode, while a very good episode of television, still doesn't make any damn lick of sense to me.
Yeah. It's baffling.
I don't have a problem with it not making sense because we're getting a season 2. So if we get a season 2 and some of it starts to make more sense in season 2, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with especially the way television series are watched nowadays. I'm okay with a story being introduced in one season and not necessarily wrapped up in a little bow within that season and later being dealt with in a subsequent season.
I'm
I'm
with you on
fine.
that. What alarms me is I think that the leftover season 1. I wonder. We've said this already. Was it written with the knowledge that there would be a season 2, or were they comfortable leaving things like that? And if they were comfortable leaving things like that, that's this would have been a hard finale to have no more room to explore this world. I think I would have been bummed with the season finale if it had been a series finale. Do you
I agree.
agree with
I
that?
agree. I agree. I think that it was well
So that
written
just
on.
that just makes me a little bit nervous about their willingness to go into these issues a little bit deeper come season 2.
Yeah, I still the we had a very interesting comment in the chat room from Chad Sextington. Chad said the GR was so full of shit because people get sad when they remember the people they've lost for no reason. People are mad because a cult is terrorizing them mentally and emotionally. They take the violence as proof that people remember, as if violence is the proof they're looking for. It just the guilty remnant. I agree with Chad. It doesn't make a ton of sense what they're doing. I don't
They're
know.
horrible.
Yeah, I don't know what their end game is, and the thing is, we got some sense from Tommy's tale that they exist not just in Mapleton. This isn't just a couple of wackos who popped up in Mapleton and are so stupid and misguided and really out of touch and out of whack and following this crazy person in Patty who doesn't have their best interest in mind and is already loopy. She was an abuse victim. She probably has some issues that she's working through with that still, and we don't know exactly what. I'm not saying abuse victims are crazy, but I am saying she was in therapy and she was already feeling weird, like grandiose thoughts about the way the world was about to end and bad things were going to happen and all of these horrible things were already set in motion. So she was already having weird things in her mind. So I would have no problem believing, look, she was just crazy and whacked out and misguided and all of that. It was everything the GR did was partially because she was just nuts. But the GR isn't just Patty's GR. There's GR in other cities. So with that in mind, I couldn't tell you what their end game is. I really don't know what they're trying to get people to do. I don't get it. Are they the people that are trying to bring about the apocalypse a second time so that they will be taken this time? I have no idea.
What else is there to talk about with the finale here? Do we have any other questions or comments that we want to go to?
Well, Justin Cooley wondered if Patty really thought she was going to push Kevin over the edge to join the guilty remnant.
Huh. I mean, that guy can't shut up. What would Kevin? He'd be like, all right, I'll join. I'll take the vow of silence. I love smoking cigarettes. I'll take the vow of silence.
Yeah.
Except you have to let me drop F-bombs all the time.
Except I'm getting an iPhone with Siri immediately.
Yeah, like the only way I'll do it is if you let me just say F this, F that. Otherwise, I won't speak.
Yeah. Do you have bagels? Do they disappear?
Yeah.
If not, I'm in. As long as I can F-bomb.
Yeah, he just needs to F-bomb all the time, and I think maybe he'd be in.
Yeah, if they could be the G, F, and R, that would be fine.
Yeah, that would be a deal breaker, I think.
I think that's a band, Guns N' Roses, though. So.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think that Kevin would join the guilty remnant.
No, and I don't know if that was Patty's end game or not. I do think that her long-standing interactions with Kevin were to kind of weaken the police resistance. Patty didn't want to be protected. Kevin was always very much about keeping the guilty remnant at bay and somewhat protecting them from what people were trying to do to them. So I don't think Patty wanted that. I don't think she wanted that for her guilty remnant. I think she wanted to be able to cause this sort of chaos and anarchy that she caused. And I think that Kevin was an impediment to that. So I do think she wanted him out of the picture, but it just didn't work at all.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
But
Anything else?
like I said, she was already a crazy person. So no, I guess my question is, where do you think we're going to go in season 2?
I don't know where we're going to go in season 2. I don't think we're going to go too far from Mapleton unless we're on the road with Lori and Tommy, which I guess is a possibility. I think that we will otherwise be in Mapleton, and I think we got to clean up the town and see, what kind of civilization can be rebuilt from this town that just got burned to the ground. And I think my guess would be that is going to involve outside parties having to come in and have their say here. And I think that might be how we start getting some new antagonist figures involved for season 2. Because I feel like the Guilty Remnant, I don't think, is done. I don't think that story is over, but I think you got to up the ante a little bit, and I think you got to introduce some new bad dogs to the situation here.
Are we talking AFTAC and federal types, or are we talking?
I could see that. I think that would be good. I think that's definitely possible. I think that there could be like a hunt for Tommy Garvey could be interesting.
Do we think that Meg is the new Patty?
I don't know. You gotta do something with Liv Tyler. Why is Liv Tyler on this show if she's just playing, a C-list character? So I feel like you gotta increase the Liv Tyler character a little bit.
Yeah, and we saw Lori really step into Patty's shoes pretty well, and Lori made the decision to push forward with Memorial Day, even though Lori was uncomfortable with Jill being there. And it was Meg who was talking. That Nora Durst, she wants to do this. I can't wait to see her face on Memorial Day. So she was sort of weak in that moment. And I don't know if she's ready to be Patty. But yet then when Kevin encounters her on the night, she's tied up. She's perfectly content with having the shit kicked out of her. She's not talking, and she's very happy that what they've done has succeeded. We made them remember. She's very smug about it. And that's a very Patty characteristic. So I could see that happening. I could see her being one of the people to really keep the Guilty Remnant alive and around. And I think that'll be interesting to see a Guilty Remnant that is not of, by, or for Patty, or really carrying her influence around and what that looks like. So I think Liv Tyler's a very good candidate. Meg is a very good candidate to do that.
But I think that she's going to have her work cut out for her, if that's the case. I think anyone who's trying to keep the Guilty Remnant together is going to have their work cut out for them. And I think that we're going to see some wins in the column for Reverend Matt, who says that he is here to he's here to save the Guilty Remnant. He's supposed to do that. And I think that you see it with Lori. Lori snaps. Her vow of silence is broken. She screams for Jill. She remembers her family. So the Guilty Remnant's effort to make people remember has bounced back in some cases, at least with Lori. And if it's going to bounce back with Lori, who is as top level as it gets at this point because Patty is dead, then I got to imagine it's bouncing back on some of the underlings as well. And I could really see Matt's congregation maybe being bolstered a little bit, or at least Matt's efforts being bolstered a little bit in terms of his work converting the Guilty Remnant back to the side of quote-unquote the angels, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So I could see that being Matt's story next season, is that he's got a little bit of momentum in terms of getting people back on his side. But something is going to happen to drag things deeper into the darkness, because this is The Leftovers after all, and that is the name of the game for this show, I think.
Maybe it'll be season 2, episode 1 will open with some sort of Perfect Strangers montage, because of course that's what Kevin's dad was watching on TV.
He loves Perfect Strangers.
And we already know that the entire cast of Perfect Strangers was departed. So
exactly.
Maybe the Guilty Remnant will be reenacting Perfect Strangers episodes in the church week by week, and that's what we'll be tuning in for.
Maybe that's going to be like a project for the mental institution that Kevin Garvey Sr. lives in. And he's going to be like directing the
Oh.
Perfect Stranger stage play.
Yes, he could cast like a Mark Linn-Baker kind of look-alike or a Bronson Pinchot stand-in, and they're just kind of arguing, and there's just one of them's a giant African American man, and one of them's like an old Jewish lady, and that's who
Yeah,
they are, and that's what he's
that'd be,
got to work with, so that's what he's going for.
it would be good. I will say this, Antonio, as we start to sign off here, is that I did not expect 10 weeks after the pilot to be excited to see more of The Leftovers. I am. I'm excited to see more of The Leftovers. I like this show. I think it's a good show. It's not my favorite show on TV. I like it a lot, and I think that it's very interesting and it's provocative. It's got really strong characters, but even stronger performances. I think the actors are really amazing. The music is great. I think there's some very intriguing mysteries on the table here that hopefully will start to come into clearer focus when we get to season 2. All of that said, I'm good to take a break. This show is depressing. It is
Yeah.
depressing. So I need to recharge a little bit. So I would like it to come back a little sooner than June, but I'm okay with it not coming back next week.
Me neither. Or me too, I should say. I need a little break from Leftovers. I'm ready to have some actually home cooked meals and some first courses, and then we'll turn back to the Leftovers. They're very comforting sometimes.
Well, even though The Leftovers is ending, we are, as always, just getting started here on post-show recaps. Antonio and I are still recapping The Strain, which we have been doing on Sunday nights. We are going to be moving that show to Monday afternoons. Starting tomorrow, we're going to be doing that, Antonio, 4 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. Does that sound good to you?
That sounds good.
So
We're gonna kill some Strigoi, cut some heads off, free some people.
yes, we're gonna be slaying vampires on Monday afternoons with The Strain, but Sunday nights, you're not going to be getting live shows here on post show recaps until The Walking Dead in October, but you are going to be getting some new Sunday night coverage of a really awesome TV show that I've only seen a little bit of, but what I have seen I've really enjoyed. Antonio is going to be leading you through that. Antonio, tell the people what they can expect from you and Mr. Jeremiah Panhurst.
Taking a walk down the boardwalk in Boardwalk Empire's final season, 8 episodes. We recorded this weekend our top 5 favorite moments from Boardwalk Empire. You can catch that at postshowrecaps.com. And starting tomorrow night, on Monday night, we will begin recapping Boardwalk Empire. Tomorrow night, because we're doing the Leftovers live tonight, we're not going to be talking about Boardwalk until then. But tomorrow night, we're going to be recapping the season premiere of Boardwalk Empire Boardwalk Empire season 5, episode 1. So we'll go from there, and we'll be talking everything Boardwalk Empire. Hope to have you join us there. Would love to talk Boardwalk Empire with you if that's a show you're a fan of. I do believe, Josh, you're talking some Sons of Anarchy.
Yes, Rob Sesternino and I are going to be podcasting the final season of Sons of Anarchy. That premieres on Tuesday, September 9th. Rob and I will be live as soon as the episode ends. I'm approximating that is going to be around 11:30 p.m. Eastern on
Oof.
September 9th. I don't know. It could be later. It could frankly be later because Sons of Anarchy is a long show. That show goes like an hour and a half every time. With this being the final season, I wouldn't be surprised if we get some 3-hour episodes in there. So it's going to be a ride. Of course it is, because it's a show about motorcycles. But it's going to be a fun ride, and it's a very bloody show. I think it's the grossest show on TV, even grosser than The Walking Dead. But speaking of The Walking Dead, we'll be back with that show in about a month. We're getting pretty close to the return of The Walking Dead. That will be our show on Sunday nights when that show comes back. We're still chugging along with Lost Lives. We're getting closer and closer to the September 22nd 10-year reunion of the series premiere. Antonio and I are going to be podcasting about that, and we have plenty of other Lost shows to come before then. We've started a Once Upon a Time podcast here with Mike Bloom and Kurt Clark are leading the way on that. So tons of stuff happening here on post-show recaps. Leftovers is ending its coverage for this season, but we will be back with that in the summer of 2015. It's been really fun talking about this show with you, Antonio. Even though it's such a depressing show, it's been always very informative, very insightful, very interesting rapping about this one with you, my man.
I know I'm going to miss talking about this with you, Josh, but if I could make one request, in Sons of Anarchy, can you do a Sam Crow-Tarley impression?
I might be able to.
He's a crow. He is a crow, and Sam Crow. I feel like it fits.
It's possible. We'll see. I'm working on my answer right now.
Well, I sounds like a metaphor, and I don't really need to know what that means, but that's okay.
Fine. You don't need to know what that means.
All
Anyway,
right.
that's gonna do it for us here on The Leftovers Live for this season of The Leftovers. Hope you guys enjoyed. Follow Antonio, this crazy man. Follow him on Twitter. He's at AC Mazzaro, 2 Z's, 1 R. I'm at Round Howard, like Ron Howard but rounder. Follow us on Post Show Recaps at Post Show Recaps. Hashtag PS Recaps. You can subscribe to everything we're doing at postshowrecaps.com/iTunes or on YouTube, postshowrecaps.com/YouTube. And we will talk to you guys again soon. Take care, everybody.